Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we pot up some dahlia seedlings. So let's go. I live in New Hampshire. I garden in USDA Zone 5B. Based on my zip code, my average last frost date is around May 15th. I wanted to mention, I know that some of my videos might seem repetitive. The reason I repeat certain information is there are a lot of people that see my videos for the first time. So I don't want to skip over any important information. But you can always skip ahead if you've seen certain parts of this before and you just want to get to the meat of the information that you're looking for. Today is March 18th. I'm about 8.5 weeks away from my average last frost date. I've grown dahlias from seed a number of times. It's actually a lot of fun to do. And together we sowed the dahlia seeds on March 15th. That was only 3 days ago. And in case you missed that video, I'll put a link to that in the description below. We sowed the seeds 2 different ways. One way was sowing them directly into seed starting mix, and we put them inside of this restaurant takeout container. And then the second way that we sowed the seeds was putting the same type of seeds, but inside of a wet paper towel. And then I took the wet paper towel, I put it inside of tin foil. I only use tin foil because it helps keep in some of the moisture. I originally was only going to put the restaurant takeout container on a seedling heat mat. And when it came to the seeds that were in the wet paper towel, I was going to keep them at room temperature because my house generally stays around 67 degrees Fahrenheit. But a few of you had written me asking me, was I putting these on a seedling heat mat? So after I got a couple of notes from a few of you, I decided I might as well, why not? So after the first day, I did take whatever was inside of the wet paper towels and inside of the tin foil, and I put them on the seedling heat mat. I want to caution something. If you're going to do that, make sure that you're checking these on a daily basis because they dry out very quickly because they're not inside of any sort of seed starting mix. So if you notice that they're drying out, you want to make sure you're giving them a spritz of water. And if you don't think you're going to be as diligent about checking them every day, I don't recommend putting them on a seedling heat mat. This one is fine. It stays nice and wet because it has the humidity dome and it's inside of the seedling mix. But when it comes to doing it this way with the paper towel method, unless you're going to check it every day, I would just keep it not on a seedling heat mat. So I guess what I'm saying is use your own judgment on which method you think would work better for you, to take these and put them on a seedling heat mat or just let them do their own thing without a seedling heat mat. I wasn't planning to make this video until a number of days from now. It's only been 3 days, but there is germination, which means since these plants grow so quickly, it's actually time to pot them up. Now they all have not germinated, only some have germinated, but I wanted to show you today what they look like and what my next steps are. Now you might be wondering, why did I sow all these seeds in little trays like this or in the paper towels? Honestly, I do this to save space under my grow lights. When it comes to sowing seeds, if you sow seeds directly in something like 6 cell packs and only 50% of the seeds come up, now you have a bunch of empty cells under your grow lights that are just wasting space. Whereas when you mass sow a bunch of seeds in a small container like this or inside of a paper towel, then you know which seeds are going to germinate. And then based on the seeds that have germinated, you can prick them out and then you can pot those up. And when it comes to seeds that are sprouted in a paper towel, you definitely want to pot those up as soon as they start germinating. If you wait too long, what's going to happen is the roots are going to start tangling inside of the paper towel. And some people, instead of using paper towels, like to use coffee filters in order to get around that problem. You may want to experiment with that as well. So my plan for us today is to pot up any of the seeds that have germinated so far. And we're going to be potting them up in potting mix that I've made myself. You can always use whatever potting mix that you want to, but I like to make my own potting mix because in the end it saves me a lot more money. I go through so much potting mix during the season that I like to make my own. And the recipe I've been using this year consists of parts. And when we talk about parts, we're talking about a container, like some sort of a bowl, for example. So it would be 4 bowls or 4 parts of peat moss. And you can use cocoa coir if you want. But I've been using peat moss and it works well for me. And when it comes to the peat moss, I like to buy it in bulk from a local garden center. And then I add 1 part of vermiculite. I like to buy it in bulk. Personally, I've been buying it off of Amazon, but shop around. You might find some other places where you can get it cheaper. And the purpose for vermiculite is to retain moisture. And then I like to add 1 part of perlite. I like to buy that off of Amazon, but again, you can shop around. Maybe you'll find it cheaper. And the purpose for perlite is to provide good drainage. And then I sprinkle the top with some sort of garden lime. not the pelletized lime, but the powder lime. You don't need to add lime if you're using coco coir, but if you're using peat moss, you definitely want to add lime because peat moss is very acidic and the lime will help offset the acidity levels of the peat moss. It's good to use pre-moistened potting mix when potting up. I pre-moisten my potting mix by pouring boiling water on it. The reason I like to use boiling water is to kill off the possibility of any fungus gnat eggs that might be in my peat moss. I then mix it up, I cover it, and then I let it just sit there until it cools down. Once it's cooled down, it's safe to use. When it comes to potting up dahlia seedlings, you have a couple of options. You can pot them up into 6 cell packs, or you can pot them up into something a little bigger, like maybe a 2-inch or a 3-inch pot. And the reason is the plants grow pretty quickly. Now, I'm okay with putting them in 6 cell packs next, and then I will have to pot them up again before they even go outside 8 weeks from now. I'm okay with that, but definitely pot up in the next size that you feel comfortable with. My 6 cell packs will be placed in solid bottom 10 by 20 trays. They're called that because they're 10 inches one way by 20 inches the other way. And the reason they're solid bottom is so that I can bottom water my seedlings. In case you're wondering where do I buy my 6 cell packs and my 10 by 20 trays from, I used to buy them on Amazon. I've also bought them from a local store close to me called Ocean State Job Lot. But as of recently, I haven't been buying them anymore. I typically can get them for free from neighbors, friends, family, Facebook Marketplace, as well as local garden centers. I'll take you in for a closer look to show you which seeds have germinated and how I'm going to pot them up. So here's the tray of dahlia seeds that we sowed together 3 days ago. And this is in seed starting mix. These are the Dandy Improved. They have not germinated yet. We have the Unwins mix, and those have not germinated yet either. Now these are some dahlias that I had collected the seeds, and the color is either salmon or like an orange peach color. And you can see that 3 seedlings have popped up so far. And then these ones over here were some yellow dahlias that, again, I collected the seeds. And so far, 2 of those seedlings have popped up. I could wait and I could let some more seedlings pop up, but I'm just going to be pricking out seedlings as they start germinating and getting them into 6 cell packs. I have so many other plants going on right now. I just want to keep up with this process. Also, I want the humidity dome to go back on so that these other seeds have a better chance of germination. But if I keep the humidity dome on and I have these little sprouted guys staying in here, it's actually not good. It could create what's called damping off, and all of a sudden these little seedlings might end up flopping over and dying. So I would much prefer to prick out any of the seedlings that have popped up so far. So here are the Dandy Improved. Now remember, none of these had germinated inside of the seed starting mix. And if we look carefully, none of the ones in the wet paper towel have germinated either. So what I'm checking for right now is I'm checking to see if the paper towel feels dry. And it does not. But if it did, I would give it a spritz of water at this time. The next one we have is Dahlia Unwins Mix. And again, we have 0 germination so far on that one. We have the orange peach salmon colored dahlia, the seeds that I had collected. The first thing I'm noticing is the paper towel seems a little bit dry. I will need to add a little spritz of water to this. And wow, we actually have really good germination on these guys here. So we will be taking these out and we will be potting these up together. And then finally, we have the yellow dahlias. And again, I collected these seeds. They have a dark colored leaf to them. This paper towel feels nice and moist, so I'm not going to be adding any additional water to it. But you can see a few of these have sprouted as well, so we'll go ahead and prick those out. For the potting mix, when you squeeze it, no water should be dripping out. If water's dripping out, that means it's too wet, and when you let go, it should hold its form. If it's crumbly and falling apart, that means that it's dry and it needs more water. No matter what pot or container you use, you always want to make sure it has drainage holes in the bottom. We're going to go ahead and we're going to add our potting mix to our 6 cell pack. And when it comes to adding the potting mix, you want to press down and you want to make sure that the potting mix is reaching the top of your pot or your container. You also want to make sure that you're pressing down to eliminate any sort of air pockets. If there are air pockets in there, what might happen is when you bottom water your seedlings, they may not get full water in, let's say, one of the cells. You might have all the cells that are turning a dark brown color, and one cell just never seems to get any water in it. That's typically because it has some air pockets in it. And usually, to fix that problem, you can just press around that little seedling, and that should then start wicking up water from the bottom. I'm just going to use a pen and I'm going to make a hole. And I'm pretty sure that the roots are fairly long. So at this point, the hole is going to be a nice deep hole inside of each of these 6 cells. Just to make things easier, I'm going to put a label that says salmon dahlia. And I'm using a garden marker for that. I always encourage using labels so that you don't forget what it is that you're planting. You can use whatever tool you want. Again, I'm just going to use my pen. When it comes to handling your seedling, you always want to handle it by the leaves. You don't want to ever handle a seedling by the stem, because if you handle a seedling by the stem and the stem breaks, then the seedling is no good and it's going to die. If you handle a seedling by its leaves, then at least if one leaf breaks, then the plant should be okay because it still has another leaf here, and that helps photosynthesize and feed the plant. And I'm just going underneath it to pull it out. And I'm just going to press down over here because I know there are other seeds that are under there. And you can see that's what the roots look like. I'm going to go ahead and place my seedling in here. And at this point, it's very important to plant this as deep as possible. You don't need to have so much of the stem sticking out. The plant is very forgiving, and it's better to have it planted a little deeper at this point. Just make sure that the leaves are above soil level. And that just gives you an idea of what it looks like now that we've planted that seedling. I'm noticing that another seedling is going to be emerging within another day or so, but we're going to leave it for right now. But we'll go after these 2 guys here. Again, we're just going underneath like that. Just going to press down. And you can notice that the seed cap is still attached to the leaves. And I gently pulled and I was able to remove the seed cap. You don't want to force it. It will come off on its own, but if you want to guide it and it's going to come off easily, you might as well do that. Let's go ahead and place it. And then we're going to just backfill around it. Just like that. And we're going to go after this third one here. And look how long we have beneath the leaves there. And that's the reason why when we made our holes, we made it to the bottom of each cell. So we'll gently place that in there. And you do want to be gentle. You don't want to break the stem. You just want to guide it in there and then go ahead and backfill. When it comes to sowing your seeds, you can absolutely sow them directly inside of something like the 6 cell pack. A lot of people do. I just prefer to multi-sow them and then pot them up like this, but you don't have to do that. You can skip that step and go directly to something like this. In fact, some people might put 2 seeds in each cell, and if there's an empty cell, then they might take one of the 2 seedlings that have emerged in, let's say, this cell and move it over into this cell where nothing's coming up. So that's another option. So now we're going to take a look at what we have inside of the tin foil for that same salmon colored dahlia. So this is what I was talking about. If you don't catch it quick enough, what happens is the roots want to start going inside of the paper towel. It's very important to catch that before that happens. So you can see it hasn't started doing that yet, so we're getting at the right time. So I'm going to remove it from here, and then we can place it in here. You can always use the back of your pen and just press down as well. There, just like that. I'm going to go after this guy next. And the seed is attached again, so let's see if we can gently take it off, and we can. I mentioned in my previous video when we sewed these seeds together, a big reason I enjoy putting big seeds inside of a paper towel like we did is it's just fun. And when my kids were younger, it used to be such a fun thing to do with them. I prefer to do that with large seeds, not so much with teeny tiny seeds. This one here has already started to have its roots going inside of the paper towel. And I'm picking this one because I wanted to show you what would I do in a situation like that. There are a few different things you could do. You could definitely cut a piece like this and take this piece with the paper towel and sow that seed like that. I would recommend that if you're a novice gardener. But if you want to try, you can try to pull it apart like this very carefully and try to get the seed to come outside of the paper towel. Just like that. And even if a little bit of the paper towel is on there, it's fine because it will break down. Or you could remove it like that. But again, I wouldn't recommend it for everyone because you have to be really careful. And then I can go ahead and remove the seed again off of the leaves. And we're going to sow our last seed in the 6L pack. So what I plan to do is use the same process I just showed you. I'm going to sow any of the other seeds that have germinated. Any seeds that have not germinated will stay inside of this paper towel. I can tell the paper towel is dry. I will give it a very light mist of water, not too much because I don't want to rot the seeds out. I'll cover it back up. And again, I will put this back on my seedling heat mat just to expedite or speed up the process, but I will be checking it every day. You don't have to put it on a seedling heat mat if you don't want to, especially if you're not going to be checking it on a daily basis because the seedling heat mat will dry this out very quickly. I will do the same process with these guys. I have a few of these seeds that need to be potted up. Other than that, I'm checking and this feels still pretty wet, but I will probably give this a little mist of water. I will place the humidity dome back on, and then this will get placed back on my seedling heat mat as well as under my LED shop lights. The first set of leaves that you see on a plant are called the cotyledons. At this point, the plants do not need any additional fertilizer. The reason is a seed as well as the plant that has its cotyledons have everything they need in terms of nutrients. However, as soon as we start seeing the first set of what are called true leaves, at that point, I'm going to go ahead and start fertilizing my plants. The way I fertilize them is by bottom watering, and I like to use Miracle Grow, although you can use whatever fertilizer you like. And you want to use a half a strength of that fertilizer. Once the plant is much larger, at that point I can go ahead and use a full strength of fertilizer. My potted up seedlings will then get placed under the grow lights. The grow lights are about 2 to 3 inches above the seedlings. You don't want the lights too high because if they're too high, your seedlings will become leggy. And any seeds that have not germinated will continue to be on the seedling heat mat with the tin foil on them or the humidity dome on them. And I'll be checking on those seeds daily. And as more seeds germinate, those will get potted up as well. If you want to see more about my grow lights, I have a video that I made and you can check that out in the description as well. I have a fan running 16 hours a day. It comes on when the lights come on. It goes off when the lights go off. The fan helps make for stronger seedlings. I highly encourage an oscillating fan inside your grow room. When you think about it, the fan adds movement in the room. It's almost like the seedlings are outside getting used to the wind, but instead they're in a controlled environment, but the fan is giving them that feeling that's preparing them for the outside environment. I know some of you have started your dahlias from seed. I'd love to know how you're doing, and if you haven't sown them yet, definitely let me know when you plan on sowing your dahlia seeds. I'll continue to make updated videos when it's time to pot these up even more, as well as pinch back the dahlias, fertilize them, and then get them out in the landscape. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.